A new analysis shows that the 6-ton iconic altar stone at the heart of Stonehenge, the discovery shows that its construction was a far greater collaborative effort than scientists believed.
For centuries, Stonehenge has stood as one of the world's most enduring mysteries, an ancient monument that has baffled historians, archaeologists, and scientists alike. But now, a shocking new discovery has left experts stunned, and what they've uncovered may be far worse than anything we could have imagined. Beneath the surface of those towering stones lies evidence that challenges everything we thought we knew about its creation, its purpose, and the people who built it. Could it be that Stonehenge has been hiding a dark and unsettling truth all along? What was it really built for? And why is this new revelation so terrifying? Stay with us as we unravel the details that change the entire story of Stonehenge. The startling new discovery beneath the stones. Stonehenge, whose name comes from the Old English words meaning stone hanging, earned its title because of the way two upright stones hold a crossbeam at the top, resembling the shape of medieval gallows. For centuries, this stone circle on the Salisbury Plain has stood as a symbol of mystery, awe, and unanswered questions. The monument is made up of enormous stones arranged in a circle, some of which weigh between 50 and 70 tons. Without modern technology, how could ancient builders have possibly transported and erected them? That question alone has fueled countless theories. And the mystery deepened when experts realized that some of the smaller stones, called bluestones, came from quarries in Wales, more than 125 miles away. Imagine moving stones that heavy over rivers, hills, and valleys, with nothing more than primitive tools. It was thought to be impossible, yet somehow it was done. Over time, theories about its purpose piled up. Some believed it was a burial site, others said it was a temple for ceremonies, and some argued it was an ancient calendar. More recent studies have even suggested it worked as a solar calendar, carefully designed to track the days and months of the year. But the newest discovery reveals something far darker. Beneath Stonehenge's soil, evidence suggests it wasn't just a place of alignment, worship, or astronomy. Instead, it may have been the site of struggle, sacrifice, and human cost far greater than we've ever been told. The hidden truth of the altar stone. For years, archaeologists assumed they knew the origins of Stonehenge's altar stone, the large, flat block at the very heart of the circle. The common belief was that it came from southwest Wales, just like many of the smaller bluestones. But recent studies have overturned that assumption completely, and what scientists found changes the story of Stonehenge's construction forever. Through advanced mineral analysis, researchers compared the altar stone with rocks across the British Isles. What they discovered was shocking. The altar stone's unique composition did not match any rocks in Wales. Instead, it matched those found in the far north of Scotland, in the Orcadian Basin, an area that includes Orkney, Caithness, and the Moray Firth. This revelation is extraordinary because it means that the builders of Stonehenge transported a 6-ton slab of stone from the northernmost reaches of Scotland all the way down to southern England, an almost unimaginable distance of hundreds of miles. A feat of impossible engineering. Think about what this means. Thousands of years ago, before roads, cranes, or engines, people somehow managed to drag, roll, and possibly even ship a massive stone across land and sea. Experts suggest the builders may have floated it by boat along the coastlines, then hauled it inland on wooden sledges or rollers. It wasn't just labor. It was an enormous undertaking of planning, coordination, and endurance. Communities across Britain must have been connected, working together to achieve something that seems impossible even by today's standards. And that raises the question, why go through all this trouble? Why not just use the stones already available locally? A stone with sacred meaning. Experts believe the altar stone was chosen precisely because of where it came from. Its long journey wasn't about practicality, it was about meaning. Perhaps the stone held spiritual or symbolic importance, a connection to ancestors, or a representation of unity across distant tribes. Its placement at the very center of Stonehenge wasn't random. It was deliberate, symbolic, and deeply significant. In ancient ceremonies, all eyes would have been drawn toward that central block, a stone brought from the farthest edges of Britain, carrying a meaning that may now be lost to time. The broader picture. This discovery forces us to rethink the people of 5,000 years ago. They weren't simple farmers working in isolation. They were organized, intelligent, and connected across vast distances. They were capable of building one of the most iconic monuments in the world through cooperation, planning, and relentless determination. But there's also a darker implication: the sheer human cost. Imagine the manpower required, the months or years of labor, the strain on communities, and the sacrifices made. For every stone raised, there may have been lives lost, injuries endured, and entire generations devoted to a single mysterious purpose. If the altar stone's origin already challenges everything we knew, the next discoveries reveal even more unsettling truths, clues buried with the dead that expose who may have built Stonehenge and why. First, clues in the soil. Stonehenge has always been a puzzle, but the first real hints about its builders came in the 1800s, when archaeologists began to dig beneath its ancient stones. What they uncovered seemed ordinary at first: burnt pieces of wood, fragments of animal antlers, and even some pottery left behind by Romans. None of these finds gave a clear picture. For years, they were dismissed as leftovers from people who simply visited the monument long after it had been built. But in 1862, a closer examination revealed something far more significant: human remains. Specifically, cremated bones buried in the chalky soil. At the time, cremation wasn't thought to be common in Britain. To find it here suggested that the site was much older than anyone had believed. It pushed Stonehenge's origins back thousands of years into the Bronze Age. The Bronze Age connection. The Bronze Age, beginning around 2500 BCE in Britain, marked a dramatic shift in human life. For the first time, people had access to metal tools forged from copper and tin. These tools were sharper, stronger, and more durable than anything made of stone. With them, farming became more efficient, wood could be cut with greater ease, and construction projects reached new heights. The discovery of cremated remains suggested that whoever built Stonehenge lived during this transformative time. They were not primitive or unskilled. They were people at the forefront of change, harnessing new technology and using it to shape their world. The arrival of the Bell Beaker people. Not long after, archaeologists began to find distinctive artifacts associated with a mysterious culture known as the Bell Beaker people. Named for their uniquely shaped pottery, bell-shaped drinking vessels often decorated with intricate patterns, these people spread across Europe and into Britain around 2400 BCE. The Bell Beaker people didn't just bring new styles of pottery. They brought the knowledge of metalworking, burial practices, and new forms of social organization. Evidence suggests they had wide networks of trade and cultural exchange. When bronze tools were found near Stonehenge, it became clear these people had played a role in shaping or even constructing the monument. A society willing to sacrifice. The evidence of cremation, combined with bronze tools, gave experts a new picture of Stonehenge's builders. This wasn't the work of Romans or Druids, nor was it the fantastical creation of giants or wizards, as myths once claimed. It was the work of real people, living in a time of progress and innovation. But this revelation came with a disturbing undertone. The cremated bones suggested that Stonehenge was not just a ceremonial site, it was a place of burial. Some of the remains belonged to high-status individuals, but others may have been offerings, sacrifices made as part of rituals tied to the monument. The construction of Stonehenge may have demanded not only immense labor, but also human lives, given in devotion to gods or ancestors we can only guess at today. The arrival of the Bell Beaker people reshaped Britain, and their influence seems carved into every stone of this monument. But if these early excavations revealed the people behind Stonehenge, new discoveries would soon show that some of its stones had a life long before they ever stood on Salisbury Plain. A shocking discovery in the hills of Wales. For centuries, people assumed that the stones of Stonehenge came from quarries near its site, or from Wales, where the famous blue stones were traced. But a discovery in the Preseli Hills of Wales revealed a truth more unsettling. Stonehenge may not have been the first stone circle at all. In an isolated area known as Wan Mon, archaeologists uncovered something extraordinary. Large, empty holes arranged in a circle. These holes matched the exact dimensions of the bluestones that now stand at Stonehenge. The evidence was clear. These stones had once been part of a completely different monument, a circle built in Wales centuries earlier, a monument reborn. The implications are staggering. It means that before Stonehenge was ever built in England, a similar stone circle stood in Wales. At some point, those stones were uprooted, dragged across 150 miles of rugged landscape, and replanted on Salisbury Plain. This wasn't just recycling, it was cultural and spiritual migration. The stones weren't moved because they were convenient. They were moved because they meant something. They were sacred, symbols of continuity, identity, or power. To the people who carried them, these stones were not mere rocks. They were living relics of their ancestors and their gods. The scale of the journey. Imagine the task. These blue stones weighed up to 4 tons each. Moving them across rivers, valleys, and hills without modern machines would have been brutal. Experts believe the builders may have rolled them on logs, dragged them with ropes, or floated them along rivers on wooden rafts. The effort would have required hundreds of people working in unison for weeks or months. The journey itself may have been as important as the destination. Moving the stones could have been a ceremonial pilgrimage, with rituals performed along the way. Each mile covered may have been an act of devotion, binding communities together in a shared act of faith and endurance, a network of sacred sites. This discovery changes how we see Stonehenge. It wasn't an isolated creation. It was part of a broader sacred landscape that stretched across Britain. The reuse of stones from Wan Mon, suggests a continuity of belief systems, with communities carrying their sacred monuments with them as they moved or merged with other groups. Stonehenge, in this light, becomes the culmination of a much larger spiritual network. It was not just a stone circle. It was the gathering place, the centerpiece of a culture that spanned regions and generations. The dark implications. But here's the unsettling part. If these stones were uprooted and carried hundreds of miles, what does that say about the human cost? The effort would have demanded years of backbreaking labor, food and resources diverted from survival, and possibly the lives of those who collapsed under the strain. Stonehenge was not just a monument of wonder, it was also a monument of sacrifice. And beneath its surface, more secrets lay buried. The stones told one story, but what lay underground would reveal something even more chilling. A monument built in stages. Stonehenge wasn't built in a single effort, it was a project that spanned generations. Archaeologists believe construction began around 3000 BCE with a massive circular ditch and an earthwork enclosure. Inside, they dug 56 pits, known as the Aubrey Holes, which may have held wooden posts or even the earliest stones. This was only the beginning. Around 2500 BCE, the monument transformed. This was when the colossal sarsen stones, weighing up to 25 tons each, were hauled onto the plain. These were arranged in a massive outer circle, with pairs of stones capped by horizontal lintels to form trilithons, the iconic look we recognize today. The smaller blue stones, brought from Wales, were added and rearranged several times, showing that Stonehenge was not static. It evolved, generation after generation, reflecting changing beliefs and rituals. The Hidden Landscape Project. In recent years, new technology has peeled back the Earth's surface without a single shovel of dirt. Through the Stonehenge Hidden Landscape Project, researchers used ground-penetrating radar and 3D mapping to uncover an entire prehistoric world buried beneath and around the monument. What they found was astonishing. Vast burial mounds, huge pits, ancient processional avenues, and even the traces of wooden structures long since rotted away. Stonehenge, it turns out, was just the center of a sprawling sacred complex stretching for miles across the Salisbury Plain. It wasn't a lonely monument in an empty field. It was the heart of a prehistoric city of the dead. Secrets beneath the soil. Among the most chilling discoveries were pits dug deep into the earth, aligned with the solstices. Some scholars believe they may have been used in rituals, possibly sacrifices tied to the cycles of the sun. Others were burial sites, where cremated remains were carefully placed as offerings. The hidden monuments surrounding Stonehenge suggest it was the focal point of a massive ceremonial landscape, where life and death, heaven and earth, were bound together. People didn't just come here to look at the stones. They came to take part in rituals that connected them to the cosmos, and possibly demanded offerings far darker than we once imagined. The true scale of the project. When we think about Stonehenge, we picture the iconic circle. But in reality, the construction spanned centuries, involving thousands of people over countless generations. Every ditch dug, every mound raised, every stone placed was part of a grand design that likely consumed entire communities. The sacrifices weren't just symbolic, they were real. The sheer effort of building Stonehenge would have strained food supplies, exhausted workers, and claimed lives. It was a monument built not only with stone, but with blood, sweat, and suffering. The bigger question: if the ground beneath Stonehenge reveals such a vast and complex network, what does this mean about the people who built it? Were they uniting under a shared belief system, or were they driven by fear of forces they didn't understand? The next part of the story dives into the myths and mistaken theories about its builders, tales of giants, Romans, and Druids, and why modern science proves the truth is both more human and more terrifying. Giants, Druids, and legends. For much of history, people had no idea who could have built Stonehenge. Faced with stones so massive and mysterious, they turned to legends. One popular medieval story claimed giants had hauled the stones from distant lands, using their immense strength to raise the circle. Another myth tied the monument to the wizard Merlin, who was said to have transported the stones from Ireland using magic. Later, during the 1700s and 1800s, a new theory captured the imagination of scholars: the Druids. These Celtic priests were believed to have built Stonehenge as a temple for ceremonies and sacrifices. The idea made sense to people at the time. After all, the structure did look like a grand ceremonial site. To this day, modern Druids still gather at Stonehenge during the solstices, keeping the legend alive. But there was a problem: the timeline. When archaeologists applied radiocarbon dating and other scientific methods, they discovered that Stonehenge was thousands of years older than the Druids, older even than Celtic culture itself. The Roman theory. Another mistaken belief was that the Romans had constructed Stonehenge. Known for their engineering brilliance, the Romans built aqueducts, temples, and massive roads across Europe. So many assumed they were responsible for this mysterious circle as well. But again, science revealed the truth. Stonehenge was already ancient when the Romans first set foot in Britain. The pottery, bones, and tools buried in its soil all pointed to a much earlier age, long before Roman armies marched across the island. The harsh reality of human labor. Stripping away the myths leaves us with a truth that's both inspiring and disturbing. Stonehenge wasn't built by giants, wizards, or foreign empires. It was built by ordinary people, farmers, craftsmen, and communities who came together under shared belief. But calling them ordinary hardly does justice to what they endured. Moving stones that weighed dozens of tons without modern technology meant years of grueling labor. Imagine hauling ropes, rolling logs, and dragging sledges across miles of unforgiving land. Entire villages may have been mobilized, with every able-bodied person contributing to the cause. This wasn't a project completed in a single generation. It consumed lives, demanded resources, and tested human endurance to its breaking point. And for what? For beliefs? For gods? For reasons we may never fully understand. A monument of blood and stone. The darker truth is that Stonehenge may be less a monument of triumph than a monument of sacrifice. Its creation likely cost lives, whether through accidents, exhaustion, or ritual offerings buried beneath its stones. What survives today is not just a marvel of engineering, but a silent testimony to the struggles, pain, and devotion of the people who built it. What lies ahead? As myths fell away and science revealed the human cost of Stonehenge, archaeologists began to ask new questions. Who exactly were these people? How were they connected across such vast distances? And most importantly, what was the true purpose of this monument that demanded so much from those who built it? To answer, we must turn to the most recent and disturbing discoveries: findings that suggest Stonehenge was more than a calendar, more than a temple. It may have been a place of death, sacrifice, and ritual that would shock us even today. Beneath the stones, the evidence of death. In recent years, studies of the cremated remains buried beneath and around Stonehenge have revealed disturbing details. Many of the bones belong to men and women in the prime of their lives, people who could have been laborers, warriors, or leaders. Some even belonged to children. The sheer scale of burials suggests Stonehenge was not simply a ceremonial site, but a vast cemetery where the dead were laid to rest for generations. But here's where it gets even darker. Some of the remains show signs of violent injury, skulls fractured, bones burned in ways that hint at ritual sacrifice rather than natural cremation. To the people who built Stonehenge, death was not separate from its purpose. It was central to it. A monument of sacrifice. The blue stones, carried from Wales, and the altar stone from Scotland may not just have been chosen for their rarity. They may have been chosen because of their role in rituals that required offerings of blood, of fire, and of human life. Archaeologists now suspect that Stonehenge was more than a solar calendar or temple. It was a site where life and death converged, where communities gathered not only to celebrate the cycles of the sun, but to appease gods or spirits through sacrifice. Every stone raised may have demanded a price, every alignment with the heavens sealed with death. A network of death and belief. The discoveries of burial mounds and hidden monuments around Stonehenge only strengthen this chilling theory. It wasn't a lone monument, it was the heart of a sacred landscape designed to honor the dead and maintain cosmic balance. The people who built it may have believed that without such offerings, the sun would fail, the crops would die, or their world would fall into chaos. In that sense, Stonehenge wasn't just a marvel of engineering. It was a desperate act of survival. Communities poured their strength, their food, their lives, and their loved ones into the building of this monument, hoping to keep the universe in order. Worse than we thought. When we strip away the myths of giants and wizards, the truth of Stonehenge is far more human and far more brutal. It is not just a symbol of ancient genius, but of human cost. It is a monument built on struggle, suffering, and sacrifice. What scientists have uncovered paints a picture not of a peaceful gathering place, but of a site where the living and the dead were bound together in rituals we may never fully understand. The shocking new discovery that stones came from hundreds of miles away, that burials reveal signs of violence, that hidden landscapes suggest vast networks of death, forces us to see Stonehenge in a new and unsettling light. It wasn't just a temple. It wasn't just a calendar. It was something far darker, something worse than we ever thought. So now we're left with the ultimate question. What drove ancient people to build Stonehenge at such an unimaginable cost? Was it faith, fear, or something else entirely? Something we can't yet comprehend? Stonehenge remains one of humanity's greatest mysteries, and each discovery only makes the story more haunting. What do you think? Was it a place of wonder or a monument of sacrifice? Tell us in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible stories from history's darkest secrets. Click the next video on your screen to continue exploring the mysteries of our past.